Well, we'll do a sound check.
Do we sound check?
You've done your sound check? Hello, how are you? All right, everything there?
It's looking good to me.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, right. What are we going to talk about?
My name is Kathy Ramsay. I was born in Oamaru and I grew up in Dunedin, and I left there when I was 18 and went to Auckland and ended up on the west coast of the South Island.
Well, initially Kath and I came up here to see if there were any places which would, suit us and which I could afford. And we happened to look at an old derelict house over the road, and I could see that it was beyond my capabilities to make a good house out of it. And peering out of the trees and the shrub over here was this place. So we came over and had a look at it, and I thought to myself, yeah, that's possible. And it was for a good price. And I got half an acre of ground and freehold, and that's the only way to go.
So what was it that drew you to Karamea?
It's one of the few places in New Zealand, I think, where you can be self-sufficient in an honest way, and it's a safe place. There's no people here, and they leave us alone.
What is it about Karamea that helps you live a self-sustainable lifestyle?
The growing season's great here. 10 months of the year you can grow a veggie garden, and it produces really well and quickly. It's a good steady climate, and it's getting better, it's getting warmer. The seasons are much longer now, and things are ripening earlier.
And do you enjoy gardening?
Oh yes, that's my meditation, is to go out there and bury my hands into the dirt to the wrists and feel the earth.
So what's growing?
Lots of citrus trees who do very well here. There are limes, lemons, oranges, tangerines, kumquats. Do very well here.
So everything's all completely organic?
Yeah, the whole garden's all organic. It's compost, which I make myself in a big heap without any fancy bins or fancy worm farms. And I could stick a shovel in the ground and there'd be 50 worms in it. So they're free-range worms. I do free-range worm farming.
And what else do you grow?
Spuds, broccolis, cabbages, beans, lots of beans. We dry beans. We usually get 10-12 kilos of beans a year. Every year I get a good crop of blackberries, black currants, which we make jams, juices out of. Boysenberry's going in this year. The glasshouse provides tomatoes, capsicums, papaya, cucumbers, ginger, turmeric, all the good stuff. And it's all fresh and it's all organic.
I always wanted to live in the country, but I never did because I was impractical, and I left home and I went to Auckland and I took lots of drugs, and I lived an urban lifestyle, and I went to Auckland in the late 70s, 80s when it was a very violent, dangerous city. And part of that was fun and part of that was scary, but there was a lot of intense music. And now I live such a peaceful life. I render fat, I make jam, I just cook and look after the animals, and it's so quiet, it's wonderful. It's a total change.
What kind of animals are living here?
Before we came, the Weckers had customary routes through the house and through the garden, and they still do travel them, and even through the chicken pen, which is fenced. They have their own ways through there as well. They've accepted us because we feed them. They come and tap your feet if you don't give them dog food or cat food. We've got pakekos, lots and lots of birds, and Pat will know all their names. And we had some paradise ducks, which were orphaned, that I raised, and they would follow me from their cage into the chicken run and have a swim in the creek every day, and I would watch them and read a book while they had their swim, and then they'd walk back following me like I was the big duck and go back in their cage. And one of them, they all flew away. One of them came back with his mate and lives in the paddock next door, and his name is Gandalf.
Can you tell us a wee bit about your musical background?
Well, I came out from England to Australia, and I could play harmonica a wee bit then, and I hooked up with a whole heap of guys that were into the same sort of music as me, which was basically blues, but it was at the time of the British blues rock revival, and that's my music. You know, the early Stones, Chicken Shack, Foghat, the good bands. You know, what everybody else is trying to do now. Good fun.
Well, I would like to say that one of the most dramatic changes in my life in the last year is that I got cured of hepatitis C, and I had that for 30 years, and it was making me very, very sick, and the government had no interest in funding any of the new drugs, and I managed to get some through an Australian couple of doctors and people, ethical people, who have an organisation called Fix Hep C, and I imported my cure from India. And my life is dramatically different. My health is dramatically different.
Well, I wrote a couple of books, self-published. I did very well with them. I sold out, 400 of each. I did Left or Right's, one of the Left or Right's album covers, which was a bit of fun, bit of old school psychedelia. I'd done a couple of books for Barry Crump, the illustrations for him, and a few other people. I worked for a publisher in Christchurch for a wee while doing drawings, and I've done quite a lot of sculpting, big sculptures, which has gone overseas to different people. My pencil drawings have sold well. I had a wee shop in Oamaru for a while, opened once a week. And that used to get me a lot of commission work. Yeah, I managed to do all right out of it, and enjoyed it too. That was the main thing. I did it because I wanted to do it. I never wanted to be a working, producing artist that needed that to do his. No, it just becomes factory otherwise.
So you used to run a venue in Oamaru called the Penguin Club. Can you tell us a wee bit about that?
Yes, well, I spent probably 8 years on the committee of the Penguin Club, and I became president, and we sort of gave it a bit of a jolt, and we had, in the 2 years that Catherine and I ran it, we probably had 120 gigs of international touring musicians and some of our own best musicians in New Zealand. Everyone knows the Penguin Club.
And do you have anything like that now in Karamea?
Well, we've got the Weka Club, which is like the Penguin Club but without all the drunk people, and we have about 100 members all over the world, and we're incorporated, and our sole purpose is to provide a venue for live music. So we've got use of the Bush Lounge down the road, and we're doing about 2 or 3 gigs a year. So people come all this way and play.
So what are the other locals like?
This is probably the most neurodiverse village in the world. Everyone is unique. There's no groups of people that are the same as each other because everyone is totally different. They're all very eccentric, and they don't even try to be eccentric. They don't want to be eccentric, they just are. There's a lot of women living alone that only ever want to live alone and don't have children and have their own houses. There's down at the subdivision in Little Wanganui, there's a whole lot of bachelors, and a lot of them are called Stu and a lot of them are called Steve. There is a shortage of names, so there's about 5 Kathys and 5 Stuarts and Steves, and so while everybody's different, we don't all have our own name, which you think we could with only 300 people.
What's your favourite thing about being involved with music?
Setting the stage for the magic. That moment before the gig when the band's done the sound check and they've gone off and the lights are on and the LED lights are flickering and everything's quiet and still and there's nobody there. Like this, that's a special moment.
We virtually camped here for the first year, in front of the fire at night time with the candles and the gas light, and it took us 3 years to get the power on, officially, but we did manage to get a couple of extension cords coming in from the power pole.
Well, we were looking at houses and thought the one across the road was for sale, and so we went and had a look around that and perhaps said, well, I guess it's doable. And as we came out, I could see the veranda of this house poking out through the bushes, and the house went, no, over here, look at me, look at me. And it was just magic. It was totally overgrown, and it was beautiful. And I'm impractical. I would have lived in it exactly as it was, with all the trees making the house damp and the bees living in the bathroom wall. It was just magic. It was waiting for us. We've got one cat, Jimmy, who was a rescue cat. I came here with 4 cats, but they all died of old age, and Jimmy was waiting at the SPCA for us, and he'd been in Christchurch during the earthquakes, and he lived with an older man on the west coast who died, and then he lived in the SPCA for 6 months, and I went in there and he looked at me and he wanted to come. And as soon as he got out of the cage, when he got here, he jumped on Pat's lap, and his nose was all bashed in like Pat's, and I knew that they belonged together.
I'm now the proud owner of about 6 guitars, 2 banjos. My pride and joy is a National Steel 14 fret O model, and Catherine has a cello, an electric bass and an acoustic bass, so we've got everything covered.
When I met Pat, I had only just gone to see gigs all my life, like a lot of punk gigs when I was younger, but he was running the Penguin Club, and then I started helping him do that, and so I got involved in running the music club and doing the secretarial things and the licensing of the club, and then running the gigs, and that was really fun. And then he taught me how to play the bass guitar, which I'd always wanted to do, and now I have a cello, which I'm learning.
One, two, three.
So what are you guys called?
The
Jelly
Jelly
Roll
Roll
Bakers.
Bakers.